Welcome back to Still a Part of Us. We have just had a wonderful conversation with Evelina. She told us I just keep thinking about all the details and how difficult your pregnancy was and then
It
just
was a lot.
yes, it was so much and of her daughter being pregnant with her daughter Alia, and so grateful that you're here to tell us this story and to talk about
Thank
your
you.
daughter and to be such a uplifting person in this community because I know that a lot of people are so grateful for your sharing. You're sharing, you're being out there, you're being taught and talking about what this process has been like. So thank you, Evelina, again for coming and
Of
chatting with us
course.
today.
A huge pleasure. The pleasure's mine.
Okay, so for those, I would encourage you to go listen to Alia's story. It's beautiful, heartbreaking, and just so many things that were involved in that. And but for everybody, just to give everybody a point of reference, what happened to Alia, and about how long ago was she born at the time of our recording today?
Mhm. So Alia Celeste was stillborn at 28 weeks and 6 days due to a CPAM, congenital pulmonary airway malformation. And it will be a year and 2 days from now. So
Yeah.
just a little under a year that
Yeah.
she was born.
Yeah, and I just looking back on, my grief journey as well, I remember that first year being so hard. I
Absolutely. Oh, yes.
I would love to hear what your experience has been in that first year. I know that those first few months are just
Mm,
so they were a blur and so heavy and so so dark at times. So
yeah.
I tell me what it was like for you and anything that gave you any sort of glimmer of hope or anything that helped you through that time at the beginning?
Definitely, yes. So I want to start off by making the comparison to, how when a parent or a family has a baby for the first time or a newborn, they say, oh, that first year is so rough. It applies to stillborn parents as well, but like in
Yeah,
another way,
yeah,
because you're learning how to grieve your child, you're learning how to parent an angel baby, just something that does not come naturally at all. And
right.
so that's kind of where like that's the conclusion that I've come at towards the year mark. But in those first few months, it definitely was a blur. Like you said, I was just trying to survive every hour of every day,
Yep.
little by little. I remember something distinct was I just couldn't live in that same house anymore.
Mm.
As the months went by, I just found myself hating that house where we came home to without her.
Oh, yeah.
We had a lot of good memories with my first daughter there, but I just feel like those memories of her absence were just too profound for me to even get over. So I started mentioning to my husband that I would love to move because I think that would help my depression and my grief. And so around this time, I was still doing therapy. I mentioned in the episode that
Mhm.
I started therapy when I was pregnant with Alia because of all the complications that we were having. So I continued that really intensely, working with such an amazing therapist.
Mm.
And she was just allowing me the space to express my emotions, express everything that I needed to get out. I turned to social media during the pregnancy as well, but especially after, documenting my grief journey on TikTok. And there was a big community of women, mothers, lost moms as well, that just encouraged me every day in the comments, saying that they too have been through something similar, that
Yeah.
even though right now I don't want to hear it, it's all going to be okay. I'm going to survive. Somehow this grief is going to get lighter and lighter. I didn't believe it at the time,
Yep.
but you don't want to hear stuff like that,
Mm-mm.
because you just don't believe it. But that was a huge encouragement for me. I would read the comments and be like, "Oh, I hope it's true." I hope it's true. That did give me hope for a future that I would not cry in a day.
Yeah.
But a lot of tears, a lot of emotions. Something that I wanted to touch on is how my husband and I were grieving very differently. And
Mm.
so that
Yeah.
was a whole other strain. It did put a strain in our marriage. I'm just going to put it out there and
Mhm.
be honest, because for me it was crying, it was emotional, just I just wanted to talk about her every day. I just wanted to express my feelings about this and that. And grieving for him looked very different. He went back to work rather soon, and he was, going through his day-to-day routine as if to me nothing had happened, but
Right.
he was grieving in his own way.
Yeah.
Later on, we had heart-to-heart conversations about how his grieving looks different, and he wants to be strong for me, which is why he doesn't really show much emotion, and he doesn't cry in front of me. But it's just a way that we were, parenting Alia differently.
Yeah.
He grieved in his own way, and we still talk about her in her own ways. And
Mhm.
I think it's beautiful now, but at the time it was so hard for me to understand, like, why aren't you sad too? Like, visibly sad. Why aren't,
Yeah.
aren't you crying too? Like, I held that against him for the
Mhm.
longest time.
Mhm.
And looking back now, I know I shouldn't have done that, but I was in my own grief too, that I just couldn't comprehend anything different.
Yeah.
But so that was hard. We ended up moving about an hour away to where we are at now in the
Mhm.
mountains. And I told Jordan specifically that I would love to be surrounded by nature, because that is just so healing to me. I've always loved nature as a little
Mhm.
girl growing up. I would go hiking when I was in nursing school. Just I just love nature so much and find peace and healing in it. And so that's why we looked in this area,
Mhm.
and we found this cute farmhouse style home, and we just decided to go for it. He actually sold the other house, like,
Mhm.
just a random day behind my back. He didn't even
What?
tell me. And he was like, I came home from work one day and he said, "Hey, so the house sold, and it didn't even go on the market yet." And I was like,
Oh.
"What? Wait, we don't even have a house yet," because we didn't have a house yet. We
Yeah.
found this house a little bit after. Just another, I think it's a God thing, but
Yeah.
the puzzle pieces ended up coming together. He had
Yeah.
way more faith than I did in that process. Um, but we ended up moving here to the mountains, and that was sure enough healing
Yeah.
like no other. I mean, I can just look outside and see a mountain. I can see the trees and hear the birds, and that just
Yeah.
I just felt God so much closer out here
Mhm.
than in the town that we were living in before. So yes, family is a little bit further away, but we still see each other very, very often.
Yeah.
And that, I think that just catapulted my grief journey in a positive direction, because I was able to get out of my head. I was able to just stand outside and feel free, and just move on a
Yeah.
little bit better. So,
Yeah. I
mhm,
one thing that I found was that has actually been a pretty common thing that's happened in some of our interviews is that people, if they have this trauma,
mhm,
this very big trauma where they've lost somebody so dear to them,
mhm,
if they some people will take a trip, some people will go stay at somebody's house for like a
mhm.
month or something. Some people will move. Yeah, we've had somebody move because they were just like, I needed almost like a clean slate because there's
Exactly.
there's so
Yes.
many things, there's so many memories that are
Mhm,
associated with it, and it just is it's hard to get over
mhm.
that sad energy, I guess.
Exactly. Yes. It's something like, what came to mind at the time, which is so silly compared to the heaviness that we've been through. But
Yeah.
when you're in your young teen love and they break up with you, you just like decide to chop your hair off or dye it a different
Yep.
color. Kind of like that, but like obviously a bigger scale. Is like you just want to start over. Like you said, you just can't bear the sadness
Yeah.
of the previous space that you were in. And
Yeah.
in the comments of my videos, I've had moms say that they moved states away,
Mhm. Mhm.
away from everything like that. I get it
Yeah.
now,
'Cause yeah,
I totally understand that.
your heart needs a little different place to to heal.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a big deal. Like, I think that's great that your husband was like, you guys had agreed upon doing something this
Hmm.
drastic, I guess. It is kinda
Yeah.
drastic if you think about it, but you did
It
also have
is.
something drastic happen to you, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I continued journaling throughout
Okay.
everything. Like the months went by, I still journaled everything. Little things that would remind me of Alia, also things that would maybe trigger me and make me really sad. Like I remember I went to church one day and I heard there was like two little girls up there singing like a special music. I just started crying
Oh,
because
yeah.
I saw my daughter and Alia
Yeah.
together just further down the line because the girls were a little bit older, but I just things like that would make me cry a
Yeah.
lot. And I just remember going to therapy a lot, journaling a lot, and just spending a lot of time outside to help with the grief.
That's amazing. And you
Mm,
did therapy as well on a pretty regular basis, it sounds like.
mhm, mhm. Yeah,
Great.
it was basically every other week,
Every other week.
and we would have long sessions just talking about how to healthily move on, and we were watching for signs of like a long-term depression or
Mhm.
adjustment disorder, because it's just such a stressful and traumatic event that yeah, for some it takes longer than 6 months to a year to
Yeah.
feel somewhat stable again. But
Yeah. I know you were at several points in time, it sounded like you were worried about your own safety because of how sad you were, and I'm assuming your
mhm.
therapist was kinda keeping an eye on things as well
Oh
to
yeah,
make sure you were safe.
definitely.
Okay.
Most certainly. We were actually talking about getting me on some medication for depression, but
Mhm.
my therapist was still cautious for me starting that because it hadn't been 6 months yet. I think in their clinical judgment, the 6 month mark was a big milestone that if I still couldn't function in society,
Gotcha.
like go back to work after 6 months, for example, then they would diagnose me with clinical depression at that time. I was able to go back to work at the 4 month mark, even though I did have those hard days, like I
Yeah.
mentioned in the episode. But I was able to start making meals again for my family and cleaning, doing the daily routines of a mother. And so thankfully, I was able to pull out of that deep depression and grief, um, by the 6 month mark, and I was feeling a lot better by then.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, that is it's people don't I was like, if you haven't been through this, it really is so dark those first few months, and I
Hmm.
just don't know how to explain it besides yeah, it feels like you can't get out of it, and
Hmm.
it feels pretty grim. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
and what are some things that helped? You've mentioned several things already, but were there any things that people did for you or said to you that really helped
I
you
think
just understand a little
um,
bit better about yourself and process the grief a little bit better?
yeah, so we found a really nice church community here in
Mhm.
the town that we live in now. And so honestly, my faith has been vital to
Yeah.
my grieving journey. I mean, the things that I understand about death and the way that I understand it now is just so it's more complex and more in depth. And to me,
Mhm.
it makes me feel peace. It's given me more peace about processing our loss. And so the ladies at the church praying over me helped so tremendously. Whenever I share, they just hug me, they're
Yeah.
they're supporting like that. And yeah, just a lot of prayer. When people say that they're praying for us, I love that. I
Yeah.
absolutely love that because I just feel warmth and I feel support and love, even though now I'm not in the thick of it. But some days, like today and the next couple of days, because it'll be her 1 year, I know I've been feeling heavy in my heart, just really sad. And I think with therapy, I've allowed myself to allow those emotions to go through me
Yeah.
instead of suppressing them. So I think I'm going to be doing a lot of crying, a lot of journaling. And then I'm thinking of maybe for her 1 year, since I've been into baking a lot recently, I might just make her a little chocolate cake
Oh, yeah.
and, you know, we can just eat it here as a family and just say things that we remember about her and look over the scrapbook and um, just something small like that.
Yeah. That sounds like a
Mm,
beautiful, peaceful time. I think that's wonderful. There and I'm just gonna say that baking something for your daughter is a lovely way to parent, I think. I think there's something
Thank you.
because it's like you're making something for her. You would have done that if she was here. And
Exactly.
making that little cake, if that's what you end up doing, I think that's a
Mhm.
beautiful way to parent her and
Thank you. That
and
means a
celebrate
lot
her.
to me. It really does because I wish I could tell her, how much I love her. I want her to see everything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that you can't. I mean, she's physically not here
Yeah.
to see with her own eyes, you know what I mean? So I think to have that acknowledged, it means a lot. So I appreciate you
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, for sure. We're always trying to find ways to parent our son too. Just like, okay,
Yeah.
how can I show him that I am
Mhm.
very much aware of him as my son?
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
and it's hard to when they're physically not here. So, yeah, I get
Mhm.
you. And I'm actually curious, is there any things that people did or said that were not as helpful in this journey? Because I know that
Mm.
things, I mean, everybody means well. Everybody means well. But are
Yeah.
there some things that maybe you would suggest staying away from at certain points in time during this journey?
Yes. So I remember when I was working as a nurse at this time, maybe like 7 months into this grief, and I remember talking about loss with my patient and their family member. It just
Yeah.
came up a conversation, and the family member told me, "Oh, well, at least she passed at birth because if you had more time with her and she was like maybe a year old, the pain would have been worse." And that was I was like, "Oh," so it felt dismissive of my pain,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I understand where she was coming from too, but I was in a lot of pain. I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that to to a lost mom,
Yeah.
that if their child had lived and made memories with the family
Yeah.
and then passed, that would have been more painful than a stillbirth. I that was don't say that.
Yeah. Don't say that. Yeah. It just
No.
doesn't. I don't know. Okay, so this is one thing that has really helped me. I mean, or just realizing why it is so painful is that like once you find out you're pregnant, your whole world changes, right? Because you have
Mm.
all these
Mhm.
plans and you picture
Mhm.
like you said, you picture your daughter with her and
Mhm.
you imagine traveling together and you imagine them going to school and everything. And now it's like gone just like that. And I don't think people realize
That's
like
right.
the future is just gone all of a sudden
Mhm.
and it memories are not. I mean, there's kind of
Mhm.
memories because 'cause you've already created that what that future plan was gonna look like, and now it's gone, and it's,
Perfectly said.
dramatic,
That's
dramatic.
exactly right.
Yeah. So, yes, I
Exactly
agree
right.
that don't say that to what that person said. Don't say that. That's not
Yeah.
that's not great.
Mm-mm.
Um, Emelina, I am wondering, is there you have lent such wisdom and openness in your social media posts and everything, and, I'm wondering if there are things that, have, like, been rung true to people as you've shared your journey. Is there any certain things or advice that you feel like would be, that have helped people that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Yes, I think going back to what I said earlier about just letting yourself grieve in whatever way that may be for you. I don't want you to think that if you're a lost mom out there, like that you have to grieve a certain way
Mhm.
for a certain time and doing certain things that other people are doing, but just know that the way that you parent this child is your way. It's your baby. So I would recommend that you do whatever you need to do to feel like you're grieving them respectfully and all that. And so take your time with it. Don't rush anything. Don't suppress anything either
Yeah.
because you need to feel these emotions as hard as they are. I personally believe in God a lot. And so if you do too, prayer is so important and a relationship with Jesus
Yeah.
is huge. And I think having family around, if they are healthy to be around, I
Mhm.
highly suggest that you take advantage if you have other littles, so that you give yourself time to grieve, kind of take that parenting aspect out of the picture because that it's hard
That
to
is
grieve
hard.
and parent someone
Yeah.
else at the same time.
Yeah.
So I recommend that you use the resources around you, the community that you have, your family and your friends.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's huge. I think we don't give ourselves permission to do that sometimes
Right.
because people are clamoring to help. That's
Mhm.
that's one thing I keep thinking, like, there were so many people who were like, "What can I do to help?" And the people that just said, "Hey, can I take your daughter just for the
Yeah.
afternoon so you
Mhm.
can just be home, by yourself if you need to?" That was a
Yeah.
huge help. So that
Yeah.
might be a suggestion. Just see if there's anybody if you can take a
Oh,
child off their
yes.
hands.
Yes, absolutely. Don't be afraid to ask for help either and accept
Yeah.
it too. Like,
Yeah.
right now is not the time to be prideful.
Nope, nope. Yep, you have every right to be sad and broken
Mhm.
and be able to feel that. I wanna point out one thing you said earlier, and I know that this gets said a lot of just like you said you need to feel those things. It needs to ride
Mhm.
through your body. It needs to go through
Mhm.
your body, and you can't suppress it because it really just does it kind of overflows in places that you don't want it to when
Exactly.
if you
Ooh,
keep
yes.
suppressing it. Yeah,
Yes.
that happens so many
Mhm.
times to me. I'm like, "Oh, okay, I gotta do a little bit more crying, a little
Mhm.
bit more being sad or
Mhm.
guilty or shameful and all of those
Yeah.
things that go through."
Something that I'm dealing with now almost a year later is kind of feeling like maybe I shouldn't be talking about her as much anymore because it's already
Oh,
been a year. But that's another thought that I know I need to get rid of because
yeah.
no, I'm gonna be talking about her for the rest
Mhm.
of my life.
Yep, yep.
You know what I mean? Like,
Just
just because
like
it's been a year, I'm not gonna talk about her any less. So
yeah.
I'm sorry, people out there that follow me on social media. I'm gonna keep talking about her and
Yeah.
sharing her story.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? She's your daughter. I mean, I just think
Yeah.
that's so funny how people are just like, "Aren't you done yet?" Like,
Mhm.
No, no, like, part of the
Yeah.
family, remember? That's just what's gonna
Mhm.
happen, so,
Mhm.
yeah. It's interesting that you're like, "Oh, yeah, I had this thought," and kind of felt like, oh, a little bit of shame associated with it, but then you're like, "Nope, just
Yeah.
kidding."
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you
Mm-mm.
have to talk back to your thoughts and like, "Nope, that's not my reality," so
Right. Mhm.
I know that we chatted about this, and I'm kind of looking forward to this. And I had sent some ideas for this discussion that we were going to have to Evelina, and she said that she did something and wanted to share with this audience. And I'll let you you tell me what
Yes.
inspired you to do
I'm
this because
so excited for this.
yeah, I'm looking forward to what you have to say.
So, like I mentioned earlier, it's gonna be a year on the 11th since Ali's passing. So I decided to write a letter to myself immediately post stillbirth. Like I'm imagining me now reading this letter to the Evelina that was holding Alia for the first time, like immediately after they put her in my arms. Pause there and then having me right now read this letter to her. So that's kind of where this came about. And thank you for the prompts because I think that's just so beautiful. So I'm gonna read it and this reflects my journey. I know that your journey is going to look very different, or anyone else's journey is very different, but here we go. Dear Evelina, as I lean in for a tight embrace, I wanted to tell you that I'm so sorry. And also, congratulations. Alia is so beautiful. You're in shock right now, in physical and emotional agony, and most certainly disassociated. What you just experienced is the most unnatural experience a mother could go through. Don't wish yourself into trying to make sense of this all. Just let yourself feel this moment. Look at her face. She looks just like you. I know you so badly want to hear her cry and feel her move under the baby blanket. The journey of grief and loss that you'll be thrown into when you leave the hospital will feel incredibly heavy, suffocating, depressing. The cries your body will let out without warning will be otherworldly and scary, but incredibly necessary. I encourage you to find a therapist that specializes in grief, and while you're at it, a marriage counselor as well. Your husband will grieve differently than you, and I urge you to try to be understanding of that and not hold resentment against his lack of tears. A stillbirth is a death, but still a birth, as odd as that is. So you'll experience your milk coming in, you'll experience the hormones, the body changes, the hair loss. Every day will feel unbearable as you stuff cold cabbage leaves in your bra. and when you brush your hair to find it thinning out even more. Don't lose hope. God was and is always there. I know you roll your eyes when you hear that, but trust me, God is faithful. You're going to bury Alia in about a month's time, picking out a casket and designing her headstone. That felt like a fever dream or a nightmare, really. No amount of money could buy a casket and headstone worthy of Alia's beauty and immense impact. So you settle for a pink and white one with a cute pink ribbon lining the bottom edge, 28 inches long. Your knees will buckle and you'll be wailing as your family hugs you and says their condolences. Somehow you survived the funeral ceremony and watched them lower your baby girl into the ground. I'm hugging you so tightly, Evelina. Having an almost 2-year-old girl at home is healing in a way, but also nearly impossible to parent, and that's okay. You have an amazing family that will offer to watch her when you can't get out of bed. Hold on to your faith, Evelina. You soon realize that Alia didn't die in vain, that your story will touch hundreds of thousands of people, some of them having gone through the same horror as you. They'll watch you get up and learn how to cope with the grief, a daily battle to be won. You'll move to the mountains and find a lovely church community that will pray over you and your family. And you don't see it right now or even feel it, but you're so strong, and your life is a testament to the goodness of God. Alia's story will become a huge testimony to those around you, and you will be forever changed as a woman, mom, daughter, child of God. And with that, I'll tell you congratulations again because you're pregnant again, this time with a baby boy. You'll meet him in a few months, and you'll feel joy again, Evelina. I promise you that. The grief will always be in you in some way, but you'll smile again. You'll get your spark back. But right now, I want to tell you to just study her face and her little body. You'll want to relive those details time and time again. With lots of love, Evelina, a year from now.
Oh, man. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
That was that was beautiful.
Oh,
I love how you congratulated yourself because I think you forget that you just had a baby.
mhm, exactly. It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was absolutely beautiful, and I loved how, there's something so sweet about talking to yourself when you are just a mess. Like, I
Yeah.
I was just a mess. I just remember and felt so terrible for being a mess about everything.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I was a mess for a long time. I just felt like I couldn't be a good wife, a good mom. Everything just went out the window, and I think I was in survival mode for the longest time, and
yeah,
that's normal after a traumatic event like that.
exactly. You're just trying to find who you are again, and it just you feel like
Mhm.
yeah, like your identity shifts a bit because you're like, I'm a mom. I know I'm a mom, but my baby's not here. It just is. It's
Mhm.
jarring to who you are and
Mhm.
in your soul. Evelina, thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing that and sharing your heart with us and also sharing Alia with us. I think she's got a good mama and a good family and
Thank you.
um
Thank you. It makes me super happy whenever I get to share her story. So I really appreciate the opportunity again.
yeah, you're welcome for sure.